Hey guys, DJ.
Let it roll. I'm DJ, and this is David. With that introduction, this is the first episode of the Hairy Knuckle podcast. Well, first of all, let's start off with the name. Like, why did you're the one who came up with the name, the Hairy Knuckle, which, I mean, if you look at your hands versus my hands, it's obvious.
Hairy Knuckles.
Why the Hairy Knuckle?
You know, the Hairy Knuckle, I think initially I wanted it to be about lifestyle survival skills for the modern man. So we wanted this to be sort of a men's podcast that focuses on issues that modern men encounter. And these issues are completely different than what, men a few decades ago are experiencing. Because things like online dating and social media have completely changed what modern men encounter. Because women have changed, men have changed. And so there's just this whole array of different issues that men are encountering that they didn't when I was growing up, like in the 90s. And so I wanted it the Hairy Knuckle to be this sort of brass branding that sort of lifestyle tips that men can use to sort of navigate this new atmosphere in dating and in living and socializing.
But do you think we should limit it to just men? I think it should be open to, obviously it's from when you originally created the name, it's what we're doing is a lot different now, right? We have Orra to talk about. That's the new AI dating app that will be launched in April. And so I think it's much bigger than just men at this point.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So and it should be.
Right. Yeah, and it is. And Orra is something that we're including, obviously, everybody. We want, it's completely different. Do you want to get into Orra? Should we get into that?
No, I think we should at some point, but not now. I think, we can, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
But I think we want to talk about what we want to do with this podcast over time. Like initially, it's going to be about probably more intersexual dynamics and men's and women's mental health and physical health. And I think at some point, we're both entrepreneurs. We have our own separate businesses that we're growing and in various stages. And I think we want to have maybe a Hairy Knuckle entrepreneur side of things where we actually talk about entrepreneurship and what we're screwing up at and what we're doing right at,
I agree.
So
I think with Hairy Knuckle, what's going on right now on social media. So there's this dynamic between red pill and blue pill, right?
And black pill.
Yeah. There's a lot of different colored pills. So I guess with Hairy Knuckle, I think that through our own experiences in digesting, I think we were both pretty blue pill in the beginning.
Oh, clearly.
And then we had life experiences, both of us, with regard to our relationships, friendships, our businesses that kind of opened up our eyes. And the first thing, when you're a man, when you encounter red pill, it's a little bit shocking. It really is that red pill. It's something where when you take that pill, you look at the world differently.
Yeah.
But I think after a few months, we realized there's really something missing in that movement. The personalities in that space, I think that they're the front line in this new way of thinking. But I don't think they've captured the entire idea correctly. I think there's so much more where if you want to engulf the majority of people, I think that message needs to be toned down. I think if you want to bridge the gap between blue pill into red pill, that messaging, that Andrew Tate type messaging needs to be toned down. It needs to be conveyed balanced. It needs to be conveyed more sophisticatedly to where other people can kind of understand and digest. But I think initially red pill needs to be harsh. And I think these people that are doing it have done a good job. Right.
Yeah.
But I think we want to, and I think that's what Hairy Knuckle really is. It's bridging the gap between blue pill and red pill. I think that's a good way of kind of looking at it.
Well, and I also think a lot of women, they're getting their own media through various social media channels, their sources of information. And I think I could be wrong, but I think they're probably also seeing that in their own realms are seeing extremes that aren't even representing them. Do you know what I mean? Instead of, I don't know, somebody being extreme far left or far right, I mean, they're probably searching for something that is more centered in who they actually are.
Right. No, that's a good way of looking at it. And I think the thing that we want to do is we don't want to exclude women from what we're talking about. I think the Hairy Knuckle podcast needs to be about both genders, and there's only two.
No, you're right. I mean, yeah. I mean, initially that's going to offend some people, and this is going to be like, well, okay.
That's kind of where we're at. I think we're both. We want to be straightforward in kind of the stuff that we believe in.
And just so you're aware, I'm not far right.
No, neither am I.
I'm just like, I don't think that people should identify as a cat or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. But I think what we're trying to say is, Orra, the Hairy Knuckle, it encompasses both modern thinking and some traditional values. I think we're more common sense. Yeah, and I think that the two genders, both in dating and in the way our podcast is structured, I think that's something that's center to it, is we're not part of that whole woke type ideology.
Right. Maybe we should start off from where we met.
Yeah, we can go there.
So David and I met at grad school at the University of Utah. We're actually in the Salt Lake Valley right now. That's how we met. And we actually shared an office / cubicle. And yeah, we just were there every day and talked every day and got to know each other really well. And one thing led to the next, and here we are.
Had that bottle of whiskey in the cupboard.
I don't know if we want to mention that.
Well, there was.
Yeah.
But yeah, we met in grad school, and then we kind of hit it off during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And we both had businesses. I had wellness tech, DJs in automotive industry. And during that time, I think we just connected, and mostly through business, asking, we were both kind of navigating that space. I had a little bit more expertise in maybe app development, things like that. And obviously DJ is working in an innovative tonneau. So I was trying to get some insights into manufacturing and production of a physical product, which I wanted to get into, where my product is captured in both app development and physical product. So I think we kind of connected in that realm initially, and we just kind of talk every day. And then both of us are sort of encountering wake-up calls with regard to our relationships, which have been, just massive game changers in how we view the world and how we view people, relationships. And I think that's where Orra was born, is both of us trying to figure out, where we fit, where our relationships fit in this whole sphere of thinking. And we realized that there really is a good medium that we don't think is expressed right now in dating, right? Because dating is really, really focused on objectivity, right?
Yeah.
And with Orra, I think our focus was pictures last. The last thing you see is pictures. Let's really minimize objectivity, because the world is just so focused on what people look like. And I think there's this, I know I feel it, I don't know if you feel it, but there's just like this feeling of the pendulum is swinging the other way, where people are kind of fed up with this society of superficial social media,
right,
and objectifying one another, looking at pictures of somebody and saying, no, I'd smash that, no, I wouldn't smash that, and going over that,
right,
just over and over. And in your mind, all you're looking at is the initial picture.
It's like hot or not. That's it.
That entire, that's so toxic.
Yeah.
But I think that it's been around long enough to where people are seeing the repercussions of it.
Yeah, and I think, think about some of the people some of the women you've met. As you get to know the content of their heart, they become either more attractive or less attractive. The way they react to you and how you interact with them. I think don't get me wrong, I think you need to be physically attracted to somebody, but you also have to have that emotional attraction that actually keeps you engaged and builds upon that. And if the emotional connectivity, the emotional bond between you and somebody is growing or is strong, I think it's way more attractive. You find them way more physically attractive, and vice versa. I could do that, but yeah, that's my opinion.
Agree.
Yeah.
It really is like that.
I mean, we'd like to get your comments to see what your opinions on that are. I just think you have to have the whole picture, just not you don't want to be with somebody who's a dum-dum or totally superficial. Right. You need to have we talked about that, but we were talking about earlier about superficiality, but the amount of time we spent trying to set up this place so we didn't look weird, but whatever. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, let's get into Orra. I remember the first time we talked about it, how the idea came about. We wanted to call Orra the Hairy Knuckle, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that we did, and I think I did correctly, or we both did correctly with Orra, we're still launching it, we're still developing it, but I think both of our businesses, Sawtooth and Helixer, the one thing that we did, those that we didn't do with Orra, and I think that a lot of entrepreneurs really need to get their head around, because we've talked to a few entrepreneurs, right? Well, two of my friends, right? Pete and Esteban.
Yep.
And it's when people first start out, they focus a lot on unnecessary details and not actually launching the fucking business.
Right.
Launch the fucking business. Don't focus on a fucking logo. Don't focus on the name. Don't focus on the colors or the branding or any of that shit. Get it out there. And I appreciate when we were just recording and I wanted everything to be perfect. The lighting.
Yeah. I
wanted the audio to be perfect. That first clip, I just burst out laughing. And you're like, no, just keep going. Yeah. That's literally an example of how entrepreneurship should be. It should be dirty in the beginning.
It should be messy. It's unrefined.
And it should be dirty. It should be unrefined. You should make mistakes. But that's the whole purpose of being an entrepreneur.
Right.
Is making mistakes, getting dirty, learning from it. Because all an entrepreneur is a person that consistently solves small problems over and over and over again.
Yeah, you don't want to be caught up in the analysis or paralysis by analysis loop. Because you see, I think engineers actually have a problem with this. They'll over analyze and over engineer something to the point where you delay the entire project. I mean, my background is construction management and project management. And I know that working with my engineers in the past, they would add delays and it would just kill the project. And so I think the same clearly holds true with entrepreneurship. I know I've done that with Sawtooth and it was kind of a nightmare. And we had this discussion with Orra. We're just going to throw this out there. And I think it's a really good product right now. It's going to get better, but I think you just have to put it out there, let the public decide, get some feedback, improve it so everybody's happy with it.
Exactly right. And an example of this is with Orra, there was initially some discussion of what we should call it, right?
Right.
And I said, and we said, okay, logo, branding, what are we going to call it? And then I had a logo from Helixer, one of my diffuser products that I was going to call, because I was in that paralysis state, the initial entrepreneurial paralysis state.
You spent a fortune on that.
Yeah, and I didn't know what to call it. And I actually have a few names for the product, and I have logos and branding, really good logos and branding for all three of the different routes that I wanted to go.
Right.
So I said, fuck it.
Yeah.
We're going to call this Orra. Why? Why are we going to call it Orra? Because I have the fucking branding for it.
Right.
And then when we looked at it,
I think it's a perfect branding for it.
It's AI powered dating. And what we're trying to match people, we're trying to match similar auras.
Yep.
Similar spirits, similar, right? It might sound a little corny, but similar souls, right?
Right.
These daters that have the similar values. So we call them auras. And it really made sense. And then we were like, okay, well, how should the app function? Well, we looked at the logo for Orra, right? Mm-hmm. And the Orra logo is this oval.
Yep.
And that's all I used. I said, that's what we're going to use. Is half of the oval is going to be the male side and half of the oval is going to be the female side. And that's one single Orra, because that's what we're trying to match. And we just went with it. Literally the prototyping and the development of the app was on a yellow piece of paper that I drew an oval. And then we just kind of went from there and wireframed the entire thing without consulting.
No.
Without consulting.
Yeah, you wanted to spend thousands of dollars hiring
initially.
some. Yeah. And I was just like, no, we could do this.
Yeah.
And the public may hate it, but whatever. No. But I don't think it could have been better. than us just sitting down in your living room going over this.
Yeah.
In your kitchen.
Exactly. So, and this is the thing that we did right, that we didn't do right in the other businesses. And this is something that entrepreneurs, they really struggle with, is they want to get the website right. They want to get the branding right. They want to get the logo right. They want to get the colors right. They want to get, when initially all you should be doing is getting a MVP, right? A minimally viable product put together. Don't worry about the name. Don't worry about what it looks like. Get it out there. And if there's some utility and it has value, the market will tell you that.
Yep.
You're going to get feedback. Yeah, people will say, yeah, it looks like shit. But over time, even if it looks like shit, if there's value to it, then people are going to download it. People are going to buy it. And then from there, you test the market and you realize, okay, people that like this, I'm getting feedback. What can I do better? And then that's when you keep actually improving the product in small micro iterations. But the concept should be, or the notion should be, is get it out as fast as possible and don't focus on the details. And that really is the hardest thing for entrepreneurs to understand. And, we went to, I don't really want to get into kind of bad naming the program at the University of Utah, but essentially it was an attempt to systematically create a program that's organized for entrepreneurs, where they essentially don't make mistakes along the way. Well, because they have the direction and instruction from the professors and the courses, where I think that ruins the entire spirit of what a fucking entrepreneur is. Because again, like we said, you're making small mistakes one after the other, and you're solving problems one after the other. And so that defeats the purpose. There was a lot of good things about the program. I'm not going to badmouth it. Professors were great. Colleagues, right?
Yeah. But I think, everybody has probably heard this term. There's entrepreneurs and there's entrepreneurs. And I think the difference between the two is an entrepreneur may still fail, but they're actually putting in the work. They're doing the things. They're not analyzing things. They're actually moving it forward. They're doing the work to make the company or product, bringing it into fruition. And I think there was a few people in our program that I don't think they did anything. I don't think they did anything after the program. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And maybe they just pivoted. Maybe they decided they wanted to do that. I don't know. But there were some great ideas in there. And I think being an entrepreneur, I know I have a company and I know we're making a product and we're selling, but I don't consider myself an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? Is that weird? Yeah, it's just like...
But you are.
Yeah, I get that. No, I'm putting in the work, but it's a hard thing to describe, I guess I would say.
And I think you should go back to that whole concept, because I think it's so important of just doing, right? Is when you have that idea, when you have a product in mind, is to just go with it. And there's something else. Don't talk too much about it. Like, as far as like getting everybody excited and talking to people, just do it.
Just do it.
And initially it's just got to be you. And I totally believe that. Initially it's just got to be you. If you have a colleague or somebody else that has an expertise, like for example, if it's something that's focused heavily on engineering, and you have a friend that's an engineer and they might be excited and passionate about that specific product or idea or industry, then yeah, you can get involved that way. But I'm just in learning this, there really is something to the continuity of just doing and not stopping and not focusing on the details, just moving forward like this full speed bullet train, right, where along the ways you have these pitfalls and you're solving them one after the other. And there's something to be said about people that do this. There's just something like in entrepreneurship where the people that actually do this and they're committed and they're passionate and they're focused, right? That's very important. They're focused and they just do. Those are really the people that succeed. Whereas the people that think too hard about what they're doing, focus too much on the details, and want to be perfectionists, these are really the people that fail. Those stats about 85% of businesses fail?
Yeah,
those are the people. Yeah, those are the fucking people. But the people that are doing and spending as minimal as possible, not giving a shit about this expensive, incredible website. And that's another part of it, is being really fiscally responsible in the beginning, is spend as little as possible. There's something to that as well, where you're not spending way too much initially. That in itself propels you forward. There's something to that.
Right.
I think that is such an important concept. And we have a few, like I don't want to get into business. I have a good friend started a meal prepping business, but, initially focusing way too much on, for example, a website, at least 60,000 in debt for a website where, maybe getting the Meals on Wheels type business, maybe just initially talking to friends and family and getting orders by email.
We should bring him in one day and talk to him about it.
Yeah, I think we will. That's a good idea. But like focusing on that instead of building a fantastic website in the beginning. But those are hard lessons because then you're 60,000 in debt and that can crush an entrepreneur that needs all of the capital he can get. And that's troubling because a lot of people focus on those types of things. So yeah, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start a business and you have an idea, literally don't fucking focus on the logo. Don't fucking focus on the branding.
Everything has to be perfect.
Everything has to be perfect.
Nothing.
Don't worry. Like just find a domain name that.
It's like relationships. You could relationships don't have to be perfect either. Do you know what I mean? They should be good enough, but they should function to support both people in the relationship.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, and I like that you took it there because maybe that's a good way to press us forward in this other segment. So in the spirit of talking about just doing and learning from it, that same concept, like literally that same spirit, that you can move that into relationships. So as long as initially you have a principled base, right? In entrepreneurship, your principled base is, I want to bring value to the world. I'm trying to solve a specific problem, right? And I think that this specific way of solving that problem will bring both value to the world, and it's something I can commercialize and produce and I can make money off of, right? That's your way of thinking, right? It's either you're really passionate about it and you're trying to solve a problem, or you recognize a problem and you create a better solution than what other people are creating, right? There's really two ways that you can become an entrepreneur. But once you become that, you can use that principle in other areas of your life, right? Those are the principles in entrepreneurship. But that same principle exists in relationships too, right? Like, for example, being a man, being masculine, holding masculine principles, and then being a woman and expressing femininity, how it should be expressed. Those are the principles in relationships, right?
Yeah.
So you have entrepreneurship, having the principles of the spirit of wanting to solve a problem, being passionate about it, being able to commercialize it. And then in relationships, as long as you hold to those masculine, feminine dynamics, and then you tackle the relationship without thinking really too much about it, but just holding to those principles, those are the relationships that work. I think that's something I'm starting to learn of. Those are the relationships that work.
I think there's been like this trend in the last decade or so about stomping down men being men. And I don't even know what the hell that definition of being a man is. Men will do what they want to do. You know what I mean? And men want to be what they want to be. And I think there's a certain segment of the population that wants to make men more effeminate, and men don't want to do that. And vice versa. One could also say that about women, making them more masculine than they want to be. Do you know what I mean? So we're part of the podcast is we want to touch on these things. We want to talk about it over time. We want to dive into the subjects and try to get input from people in the community that have their own opinions on this. There's even a gradation of what makes a man, like a masculinity. You have like ultra masculine men that are whatever, 6'9" and 250 pounds, and they war all the time. And then, there's another man that's 6'2" and 160 pounds. Or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like masculinity isn't based obviously on physicality, but it's more.
Not at all.
I think it's more. I think of your comfort level in being who you are, right?
Yeah, I think it's a natural state of men is expressing masculinity. I think really that's the natural state of a man, they're using the blender upstairs.
Yeah, there's a blender going on.
I want to go back to what kind of got us and diverted us into this discussion. We talked about Orra and how we didn't want to focus on those details, and we just wanted to get right into creating a business out of this. And that's exactly what we did. We started in November
Well, we started talking about it in August.
Okay, we started talking about it in August, but we got really serious about it in November. As soon as we had,
I think we did a diagram, like in September.
Yeah, as soon as we had a concept, like very minimal concept of what we wanted, we got it right to the app development team that I'm used to working with. We did not hire a UI expert, a UX expert. We just did all of that. I just, we looked it up. We drew it down on paper, and we hired a foreign app development team, which requires a tremendous amount of hand holding. I will tell you that.
That's this guy right here.
Yeah, so I hold their hand the entire time. So it's essentially me managing the project and them taking instruction and developing the app. So I do all of the UI, UX, and it saves us a tremendous amount of money.
I think there's a lesson in that alone. I think you could spend a fortune hiring all those people in the United States or Canada or whatever, or you could use good managerial skills and outsource that to a less expensive country that they have the same aptitude, but you just requires you a little more conversation, a little more conversations with the team and working with them to develop it and save yourself a significant amount of money in that realm.
Yeah.
Significant amount.
There's a trade-off though, right? It's time. Right?
Yeah, it's time.
So yeah, and I can see why.
But we're not talking 6-8 months. We're talking, you're going to spend an extra 10 hours, 20 hours a week for 2 months. You know what I mean? Doing this, going through that process, maybe 4 months.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's companies that have capital and they'll hire.
Yeah.
I mean, wireframing is a big part of app development, website development, right? Is first understanding exactly what you want, wireframing it, conveying it to the development team so they can build it. That's a massive part. I'd say that's 80%. After that, they can kind of understand and take it from there based on the experience that they have developing other apps. So wireframing is huge, but that takes a tremendous amount of time. Mm-hmm. And I can see why companies hire that out, right? They have a back-end development team. They have a front-end development team. They have a UI, UX expert. They have somebody that does branding. They have somebody that does all of that and somebody that manages the project. But as an entrepreneur, you do not have the luxuries of a massive budget and capital to do that. So you need to learn, if you're doing an app, or you're doing a website, you're doing something that's electronic, even something, a physical product, right?
Right.
Finding engineers, to convey your idea. You have to learn how to do a lot of the legwork. Like you have to learn how to do those things.
Right.
You have to wear many hats, because if you wear one hat, you're not a fucking entrepreneur. You're literally like some wannabe. You're literally not an entrepreneur. You have to wear all of these different hats, and you have to learn how to be uncomfortable in skills that you might not be that great at. But in order for the business to succeed, you have to learn those things.
Just have to get out of your comfort zone and do those things. It's kind of like, it could be related to relationships. If you're not comfortable having great conversations with somebody, you have to work through that to be able to do that.
Yeah. So that was how Orra got started. Is we did everything ourselves. We managed the project. DJ's been involved heavily in trying to raise money. We haven't quite got there yet, but he's been focusing on marketing and getting a user base for the apps before we launch, which is really important too, right?
Yeah.
You want to, even though we don't have an app ready right now, we're still trying to get people to the website, get some interest going. And he's posting on social media daily.
We're trying to do advertisement, but we just discovered a roadblock like a week and a half ago that Meta wouldn't allow us to do, because it's a dating app. We had to have special approval, and they wouldn't allow us to do any paid advertisements. Yeah. We're launching this in the Wasatch Front, which makes up Salt Lake City, Provo, Ogden, that whole Wasatch Front area in Utah. And so that's where our initial spend was going to be, because we wanted to build a significant user base there. Anyway, it turns out that for us, before we could even do any ad spend with Meta, we had to have approval of the app, and we have to get approval. Our app has to be on Google Play or the iPod or Apple Store.
Yeah.
And so we're going to upload it here soon, and then we'll be able to do it. But it's just, when you run into these problems, these issues, instead of like throwing up your hands and going, well, shit, now we're sunk. Well, you just work around it, you know? And so we're going to probably upload a less than perfect app on the store, and then we'll re-upload it in a number of weeks just to go through that process.
Yeah. But there was a few things with Orra that we wanted to include. One is we wanted to do away with swipe culture. I think it's done. I think it's been exhausted.
The studies
How
have
many of the
proven.
fucking apps right now on App Store and Google Play are swipe based?
Yeah. Well, all of those swipe-based apps have been proven to increase the amount of mental health issues with people that use those.
Well, I'm saying it's 2024.
Right.
Tinder wasn't released in 2000 and what was it?
14 or 15,
12 or
something like that. Yeah, that's what I read.
I mean, it's been over a decade now. So I think we're as singles now. I think we need to evolve into something else. I think you've had enough fucking one night stands. You've had enough awkward dates. You've had enough meeting weirdos and meeting people that are not compatible and just swiping on people that you will never meet or never, let's be honest, are not in your league, either above or below, right? Because it exists, right? There are people date, similar education level. People date similar appearance wise. People date, that have similar values. That's just a fact, so you're swiping on 350-pound whales when, you're a guy that goes to the gym every day. Why are you even confronted with that?
Yeah.
Why do you need to see Shamu? Why? Like, why am I being confronted with Shamu?
Yeah, right.
When I shouldn't be.
Well,
and Shamu's the only one fucking liking me.
Yeah. Well,
she's literally the only one liking me.
I mean,
why? I deserve more than marine animals.
But the interesting thing with Orra, I mean, fitness is only one part of Orra, right? There's multiple things that Orra is evaluating. The AI portion of Orra is evaluating to give you the matches, in addition to the questions you ask in game form. David, you know this better.
Yeah.
But you should talk to this more.
Yeah. So again, with Orra, we wanted to do it with swipe culture, right?
Yep.
So we created something where the picture is the last thing you see. Like, it's literally the last thing you see. If you guys, let's go back to
the app is doing most of the vetting for you.
Yeah.
It's cutting through the bowl to give you the quality people you actually want to meet.
Let's go back to the early 2000s. I don't know if you guys are born in the 80s and early 90s. You will know what a chat room is. Like, you went into these chat rooms on Yahoo Chat or AOL Chat or whatever, and you had connections with people, usually of the opposite sex, and you talked to them for hours. I did, at least.
Yeah.
I would talk to the same username, not knowing what they looked like, not ever hearing their voice, but just having a text-based conversation. And it was entertaining. I was hooked. But there was something there where I remember I talked to this girl. Her username was Peppy. Peppy. And I talked to Peppy for, it could have been 2 years, right? There was this little group chat. And I talked to this girl for maybe 2 years. And Peppy, eventually after 2 years of speaking with this woman almost every single day, right? I was maybe 14, 15 years old. And I'd speak to this girl and we talk about everything. I knew everything about her, right? She lived in Pennsylvania, in the sticks, she'd call it. And I talked to this girl every single day. I didn't know what she looked like, didn't know what she sounded like. But I remember eventually we got to the point where she wanted to talk on the phone. And I think it was me that pressed it. It's like, I'm getting older. I finally got hair on my balls. Like, I want to know what you sound like and what you look like. And I remember she finally sent me pictures of what she looked like in email. And she could have looked like Shamu.
Oh, yeah?
She could have, but she didn't. She was a beautiful girl. Huh. But the thing is honestly, I wouldn't have cared what she looked like, because we had struck a connection based on values, based on humor, based on just this connection that we had, right? We had that. And in the end, there was no swiping. There was no picture. I had no idea what she looked like. But there was a connection where even today, I don't think I've had a connection with other girls like I did with Peppy. Her name was Hillary. Her real name's Hillary. With Hillary. And that's something that I think is missing in swipe culture. You don't have that. You don't have that connection.
You found somebody that you had like an initial connection with, and then you developed an actual emotional bond with this person, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're kind of doing with Orra.
Right. Is like swipe based is just taking that element out entirely.
You're dehumanizing a human being.
I don't know about dehumanizing, but
well, it kind of does. I mean, like you're swiping, you're like, oh, hot or not. You know what I mean? Like you're not really seeing the true heart or character of an individual just off of the picture.
Well, I think what it's playing on is humans, we have this very powerful instinctual element to us where physicality, if you see somebody that you're attracted to, you see them across the room, that impulse, that specific mechanism is what swipe apps like Tinder and Hinge and Bumble and all of the other ones, they play off of that specific mechanism. And that mechanism is powerful, but there are a lot of other things that in play that will really bring you to a different level in connecting with somebody or trying to figure out if they're a match.
And just to be clear, you should be attracted to somebody physically and emotionally. So we actually address that in Orra. We actually, part of the AI is assessing that. Yeah. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's assessing physicality at the same time, but it's a certain percentage of what the algorithm takes into consideration, right? But there's a lot of other things it's evaluating. So yeah, swipe culture is really heavily based on that mechanism, right? That initial mechanism of physical attraction. Whereas there's just so much more. There's that peppy part of it where you have a conversation with somebody and you really connect based on shared values. And really the research and evidence shows, in which we've implemented into the app, is shared values is a huge part of whether a relationship will last. Yep. And even whether, you know,
it's not even interest. Interests have been proven not to be, if you have a similar interest with somebody, it has no indication of your long-term success in the relationship.
I like to hike. You like to hike. We're going to be fucking great.
Yeah.
Shut up. No, you're not.
No.
There's no,
you don't have the same, you're not evaluating the values.
Oh yeah.
You know? So we're trying to cut through that, trying to save people time. And give them the best possible match. We also take into account, which is really fascinating, evolutionary psychology and our ancient proclivities, our ancient, what we've developed as human beings over the millennia. We've actually incorporated that into the AI. So that's. I don't think any other app is doing that.
Right. Yeah, and I think that really the momentum is swinging away from swipe-based apps. I think we're all just sick of them. I know I am. I'm like, I want nothing to do with them. I just don't want to swipe on anybody. Because, I mean, think about it. Now that you've swiped on somebody, let's say you've matched, how many deep conversations are you having with people? I understand, like, their objective is to match people on the initial impulse of appearance. And then you have just very, very minimal, superficial conversation. You get the person's Instagram or their number, and then you meet in person. That's a little bit different. But what percentage of people are actually meeting in person? Very small amount of people. A tremendous amount of time on actually swiping compared to actually meeting. Like if you compared how much time you're swiping with the amount of messages that you're getting and the amount of times that those messages are actually translating into physical dates, like it is just terrible. The ratios are fucking terrible. And that's because you don't really know who you're matching with. There's no shared values that paired you with that person. The only thing that paired you with that fucking person is what they look like. And we all know what somebody looks like is a terrible indicator of whether you want to actually be with this person.
They're going to be a good partner to you.
Yeah, exactly. You could have some luck. And I think there's a tremendous amount of people that have met and that have married or dated long term. Yeah, you can have that. But you can connect on other levels. Like there's a tremendous amount of studies that show that, you know, things like finances, right? Like men typically, if they make less than the woman, the relationship's not going to last. Right. If the man is significantly shorter than the woman, that's not going to last. Like, though we take all those variables into consideration and we never match you with somebody with that where those things don't ring true. Like, for example, if you're a 6-foot woman, we will never match you up with a 5'5" dude ever. It's not going to happen. We're not in the business of one-offs.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at the rule, not exception to the rule when we evaluate those. So, or the AI evaluates those.
So yeah, that's what we're doing is we're considering some research that we've looked at, some studies.
I mean,
We're taking all of those variables, right? Like height, education level, finances, income, appearance, and we're creating an algorithm for an app where you're only confronted with those people that are within that spectrum of people that we think you're compatible with. So you're not swiping through this endless ocean of shamus and people that will never that you're never matched with.
Well, here's the other thing. I mean, another statistic is somewhere between 4 and 6. Well, on Tinder, I think that's the app. There's somewhere between 4 and 6 men for every woman on there. And so women are bombarded with all these messages, and they're probably inundated to a point where they don't even respond to them. Another interesting fact is like on these swipe-based apps, I think 42%.
Well, let's sit there. We'll stay there.
Yeah.
On that point.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, DJ brings a great point. Like women and men have different problems, and that's something that we've tried to solve, right?
Yeah.
Where women, they have so many options, right? Because on dating apps, men outnumber women 4-1. This is across the board. I don't think there's an app out there except what's the gay one? Grindr.
Yeah.
Except Grindr, of course, is going to be more men on there. But other than that, or actually, there's just men across the board. There's no. The ratio is 4-1. So
the average ratio is 4.
average ratio. Yeah. So for every one woman, there's going to be 4 dudes on Tinder and Bumble and Hinge.
Yeah.
And all the other ones. Right? Way more dudes. So women are confronted with this problem where every other match for them, even if they look like Shamu, they're getting matches.
Yeah.
Where men have the opposite problem, where you have like this small minority of men that are at the top with regard to physicality and how they branded themselves, right? That's really important. You could be an incredible looking dude, but if you haven't branded yourself well on the app and you haven't like marketed yourself well and you haven't taken good pictures
on these other apps,
yeah. Talking about swipe based apps. If you haven't done that, you're not going to be in the top percent. So you have these small minority of dudes that are getting all the matches.
They're not even getting a chance.
Yeah. Well, the rest of the guys that are decent men that make good incomes, that are good guys, that have gone to school, that have a value system, that women are just not interested in it. And so that creates a problem where women are getting way too many matches and men are not getting any fucking matches. Right. And so what are men doing? They're settling for Shamu.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And we've tried to solve that by, if on the free version of Orra, you're searching once a day. And in that search, it's really a coin flip, because what happened is you're paired with 4 people are paired together, 2 males, 2 females. And these are people that are very closely related with regard to, let's call it like dating market value, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. They're very closely related. The algorithm said these 4 people could be very compatible, right? As far as the men to the women.
Right.
And you have 4 answers that you answer with regard to values daily. These take about 15 seconds of your time.
Yep.
And they're in the categories of family, in fitness, in fortitude,
and
finances, right? These 4 categories, simple questions. And what you do is you review those questions daily. So you're reviewing, let's say me and DJ are matched with Jane and Kate, and wake up in the morning and we review the answers to those for Jane and Kate. We see Kate's answers to those 4 questions. And we kind of decide who, based on the answers to those values questions, do we more closely align with?
Right.
And then they're reviewing our answers.
Right.
So if Jane picks DJ and DJ picks Jane, it's a match, right? And if I picked Jane, then I'm not getting a match for the day. So you take that gamble, in a sense, once a day, and you're paired with somebody that's highly compatible with you.
Right. And I mean, these are already vetted, high quality options.
Right. We're trying to do.
We're not matching Chris Elmsworth, whoever who is Thor? Whoever the hell that
Thor,
is.
just say Thor.
Thor and Shamu. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So yes, we're working to do away with those problems. And in that regard, women are not overwhelmed with too many matches. They just have one very high quality. And then if you have premium, you can get up to 5 very high quality matches a day. But the chances are that, the opposite pair is not going to always choose you. So you might end up with 1 or 2, right? At the end of the day. But these are high quality matches where men have the same amount of matches as women. And because the matches are minimal and they're very highly compatible, that we're hoping that people are going to spend more time talking with one another and connecting.
Engaging.
Exactly. You do not see their picture until both of you pick each other and you finally match. On the free version, actually, it goes a little bit further, right?
Yeah.
On the free version, even if Jane picks DJ and DJ picks Jane, they can finally speak to one another through audio and through messages. But the AI has to detect some actual engagement. And if it detects engagement that it likes, that these two people are actually having a conversation, then the photo is revealed. It's the very last thing that's revealed. And I think that promotes engaging. It promotes the curiosity, the mystery of what this person actually looks like, right? With Peppy, going back to Peppy, like the fact that I didn't know what she looked like, but the fact that we engaged and we spoke, when the picture is finally revealed, I'm going to be more inclined to not be concerned so much about what Peppy looks like. Right. I'm actually going to be attracted to her because we've already connected. We've already spoken.
You have an emotional attraction to this individual.
Exactly. So I don't know. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can go on a different tangent. Part of the podcast, I do want us to talk about, let's face it, there are men and women that just aren't doing the best they can in many realms in their life. So Orra taught, we address 4 things with Orra, or not address, 4 factors that we look at amongst many other things, fortitude, fitness, finance, family, right? I want part of the podcast to be able to address those things because there's men out there that are just shit men. They're lazy. And if they're not meeting the right people because they're slobs, yeah, they're going to be single. Of course they are, and they should be. Unless you find on Orra your female equivalent of that, that's fine with that. And if you do, that's great, go with it. But if you don't want to be in that realm, then you need to engage in self-improvement.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of being a man.
Actually, yeah, improving. That's great. That's a great point. Is there are some questions in the beginning where we ask like, what's your income? What's your seniority at your position? And the answers to those questions, the importance that we place on them, and I know some women are going to be not happy with this. They're different for men as they are for women. Like, for example, a lot of guys, like, if I see a woman that I'm bonding with that I think is attractive, that I think is soft, that I think is feminine, that I think is nurturing, that allows me to be at peace.
Yeah.
I don't give a flying fuck if she makes 20,000 or 25,000 or 30,000 or 10,000. I don't give a shit. She can live at her mom's house in the basement and
men don't care about what women make. Like, it really doesn't. It's not a huge factor.
That's the thing is now what about a dude, right? Let's say you're an attractive woman and you've bonded with a man. The fact that he's on, he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have any money, he doesn't have any ambitions, he looks incredible, but he's very low status. He's not doing anything with his life. Mm-hmm. He's not trying to start a business. He's not striving. He doesn't have status in regard to a company.
Right.
Like that, this part of Red Pill makes sense. It really does. Like, this part of it actually makes sense because these things we've seen in the studies. Yeah. Women value these things a lot more than men. And so in our algorithm, these things for men are valued differently than they are for women, right? So, and this is another subject we're going to get into, things like youth.
Yeah.
Like, for men, unfortunately, we want the majority of men. We're speaking, when we talk, we're always speaking generalizations and exceptions. Yeah. There are exceptions to everything, 100%. But men typically, there are studies that showed this, right? They showed women at different ages. Uh-huh. They're attracted to women between 19 and 22 at the most, at the peak. That's when men believe that women are the most attractive, or 19 to 22.
Regardless of the men's age.
Right. Whereas a man, so a value of a 19-year-old man compared to a 19-year-old woman, that woman, with in regard to the dating, that value of that woman is much, much higher. Much higher. Because the 19-year-old man hasn't positioned himself in life. He hasn't succeeded. He has his career level is just barely getting started. He doesn't really have an influence on society. He doesn't have material things.
Women and men value different things in each other. Like women value in men different things than men value in women. Like it just is, you know, and you could fight against it, kick against it. It doesn't change your evolutionary psychology. Like women want men that are going somewhere, that have their fitness, finance, and family and everything else in place, or have a trajectory to get there, versus a man does not care about a woman's finances. I mean, other than like, obviously if she's racked up a serious amount of debt, that's an issue, right? That needs to be addressed with the woman. But in general, like a man would marry somebody working at Burger King, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, again, we don't want to get too red pill stuff. But with regard to the app, let's say you are a woman that's highly successful, right? That you've made a tremendous amount of money. You have a good career, you know, and you're a successful woman. You're going to have specific some characteristics that, you know, some men might not find very feminine, but there are exceptions.
Yeah.
And again, we don't want to speak on the podcast with regard to exceptions, but the app will track that. Meaning the app will essentially, if men are looking for that type of woman, and there are women that are looking for that type of man that is not necessarily taking leadership in the relationship, it will recognize that over the journey that you're using the app, because you're answering the daily questions, and the app is going to essentially register that, and it'll match those two people together eventually. So that's a big part of it, is we want to create something for everybody. So if you're a highly liberal person or you're very conservative, eventually I think the app will eventually steer you closer and closer to those types of matches. So this app really could be a Tinder-esque app, meaning if people are looking for fling type situations, then that's really the type of person that you're going to be encountered with, because that's what the app is registering you wanting. If you're somebody that's conservative, looking for more Christian values, then the app will steer you more and more towards those types of matches.
Right.
So it really is what it is. And it's not like we don't want to be like a Match.com or a fucking Plenty of Fish or something like that, where they're just a bunch of old people.
The more with Orra, the more truthful you are with yourself and the information you put into it, the more likely you are to have a good experience with it. So if you lie on the app, you're going to have a bad experience with it. And so, and it gets better with time as well. As you're asked additional questions in the gaming portion, AI picks up on that, it learns, and it goes, well, you know, David initially was a good match for Jane, but it turns out he's a better match with Joe. You know what I mean? And this is something really interesting with the AI that Orra does.
Yeah. So in these swiping apps, I think they've moved towards an algorithm that's similar to a chess rating algorithm, right? And on a chess, when you're on an online chess match, you're closely aligned with people that have a rating that's close to you, right? Yeah. And so, but what that does is, for example, if you're highly desirable on the app, like there's lots of people swiping right on you, you're going to be higher in their favor. But again, that's such a small, minute aspect of what that person actually is.
The real person is, yeah.
It's just how they've presented themselves and how they look. So how they've marketed themselves. It's going to bring you higher up in the algorithm. Whereas somebody else that might not have taken, a lot of men are not going to take hours and hours in photography. And I think that's, not that great at photography and marketing themselves. They're going to be much lower because they're not being chosen as much. Whereas we're not focusing on that. We're not focusing on what other people think of you. We're focusing on what the evidence says, what the research says. We're focusing on compatibility metrics that have nothing to do with interests, have nothing to do with whether somebody thought you were ugly or whether you were fat or whether you were too skinny or whether you're too old. None of that. we're focusing on what actually matters in a relationship. And that's something that we're really
Your
proud of.
probability of having a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
It will give you that score.
Yeah. And I don't know if we want to just cut on this, but
Yeah.
the beauty of our app is the longer you use it, the more you use it, the more closer you're aligned with somebody that's more compatible. So whereas in Tinder, if people don't swipe on you, you're going to have a terrible experience, and you're going to get matches that are way more Shamu-esque over the course of the time that you're using the app. Whereas ours, that's not what's going to happen. We're just going to align you closer with somebody that's compatible with you.
Cool.
You want to stop there?
Yeah, we could have a
Little hiatus?
yeah, that's a good place to start. Stop.
All right, we're going to stop here.